Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Nicole with Made from Scrap, and today I'm going to do the walkthrough of my album that uses the Country Craft Creations exclusive paper collection by the Sea. I have used a couple of dies from my stash. I've used a wooden element that I picked up and put some crackle paste on. I've done some stitching on top of a couple of layers. I've used some Nouveau crystal drops and some lace. This is one of the cut-out parts from the collection, and then I back that on some My Colors cardstock, and then I have My Colors cardstock underneath here, the doodle bug sugar-coated paper underneath it, and then I've used the gold color of the artisan cardstock for the entirety of the album itself. There is some linen paper that I had in my stash and then some twine. I used a quilling tool in order to roll this. I thought it made it look like a bit of a wave action going on. And then to hold the crackle paste to that wood, I used some Mod Podge from my stash. So that was fun technique to do, and I hope that I see some folks doing this in the near future with some of the stuff that they may have in their stash too. So I want to just do, like I said, a little walkthrough. This is some of the cut-aparts that I wanted to just highlight on that front page. I've used some wood pieces that were gifted to me, and then I've shown a couple of pictures of this already. This was an envelope that came in the mail, junk mail. I put underneath the acetate a piece of the paper collection that I wanted to kind of pop out. And then I used a circle punch and a brad. I doubled up the paper of the circle punch in order to make a little tuck spot for the fold down portion of the envelope. This is the main size of the envelope here in its entirety. I scored it, I folded it over, and then I made it where it would tuck underneath there. This is just a fun way to use odds and ends from your trash bucket, I guess, or some of the papers that you have kind of stashed away to use for maybe junk journaling and that kind of thing. But I thought it was fun. I've played around with some of my inks here in the past, and then I just shove it into a bucket that I have for junk journaling. Here's one of the cut-aparts as well. This is sized where it can fit in each one of these corner pockets if I wanted to. It also will fit in the pocket that's on the back side of each one of these flips, and then also the large pocket on the page itself. So any one of those, as you can see this beautiful collection here. Then I flip it over, and I'm just going to show you some of the decoration that I've done here very quickly. Here's some matting of gold on ivory, artisan, for some pictures. I've used some twine down here, layered up one of those additional cut-aparts. This is on watercolored paper. I picked up a stencil that I had in my stash, and I used some ink blending on it. And it said made, what did it say? Made by the Sea, something like that. And if you're doing some stenciling in a portion that you don't want of the stencil to show through, use some washi tape so that you can mask off that area, not like I did. But anyway, I used just a dauber tool and did some foam tool and did some blending there. Thought that was fun, using some of my inks. And then I have some additional paper piecing here. I have a rickrack that I used. This is the second of the two envelopes that I made. I wanted to have a different way of closing the envelope down, so I just glued on a couple of stacked papers and punched a hole in them, wrapped that around like this, and tied some twine to it so that I could have a closure. And again, this is just paper piecing on an envelope that you get in the trash. This is one of the, just a cut that I did from the paper. It is the collage paper, so this, I just cut out one of these right there so that I could use it. And I just thought that was a fun way to do some paper piecing and use up some of that junk journal stuff as well. It was fun to do. That's the back side. Here is some more of the My Colors cardstock that's used with some paper piecing. I can't say piercing. The next page, I wanted this to look like you're sitting underneath an umbrella out at the beach, looking out at the water. Now, if you don't like the way this closes, you don't have to, use something that you want to use there. But I was doing some paper piecing again, and just thought that that would be a fun way to do it. And there's plenty of space with the 1/2-inch gusset that I used, so I'm not really that worried about it. I used some lace here to create some places where I can put some pictures on either side if I really wanted to. I'm probably not going to place a picture over that. But I wanted to bring to your attention that I was using up some of the pieces that I had in that 8x8 collection, and on the back side of the sheet that looks like this is this, and I had another piece of that sheet itself. I wanted to use the top of it, so I just cut a strip like that and placed it right here, so that's why it's a different piece there. So just be creative when it comes to putting your papers together. Here's another paper piecing that I did for a picture mat. I used a circle punch to cut out that ephemera piece. I used a larger circle punch to cut out a piece of white artisan cardstock, and then in between it I stuck some twine so that it would look like rope. I used some hot glue for that. Thought that was fun. And then on the back side, this is what I've done here, another wood element. When you open it up, I created a belly band on this back page, and then have another location for some photos and some journaling here. All of the pages are the same with the exception of this one, because I wanted to go ahead and do a belly band in the book, and I wanted to use this piece of strip of paper that I had left over and I had put aside specifically to use. I did some layering here, and I positioned it so that you still see the little girl kind of poking out there from the flap. And then on that back cover, I used some seam binding. I used some double-sided tape on the back of a sheet of artisan that I scored in 2 places to create 3 sections. And then I matted it so that you could just tie it up and have it closed, just like that. Well, that is my album for By the Sea. I hope you've enjoyed seeing it. I did some matting on this backside, and don't forget to sign your artwork. Okay, I'm going to go through the instructions for making this page for this album and the cut measurements. So first thing we're going to do is start off with the 4 base pages. So that's each one of these pages. There's 4 of them in the book, and you are going to cut 4 pieces that measure 8 1/4 by 12. Then you're going to put the piece of papers in your scoreboard, the 12 inches at the top, and you're going to score those at 8 inches. Then you need 4 other sheets that measure 3 3/4 by 9 1/4. You're going to put all 4 of those in your scoreboard with the 9 1/4 inch side on the top of your scoreboard, and you're going to score it at 1/2 inch and 8 3/4 inch. Once you glue those 2 pieces together, what you're going to come up with is something that is this with this pocket. That's the second piece, that's the B piece, and this is the A piece. You're going to glue top and bottom, and it's going to create a tube. That tube is going to get slipped onto your hinge. Okay, the other piece of your A piece, where it is scored at 8 inches, is actually this flap here. So if I look at it like this, this is part of the underneath page. This right here is added on. Okay, so from here to here is 12 inches. I scored it at 8 and it creates this flap. And then the B piece was this piece right here that I scored it at the top, I scored it at the bottom, I glued it down to the base page, which created a tube that I used to go ahead and put onto the hinge. Next thing I'm going to do is create this flap right here. For the flap, which I am calling the flap page, you're going to cut 4 pieces that measure 6 by 8 1/4. On the 6-inch side, you're going to score at 1/2 inch. So this is a piece that measures 6 inches wide. I scored it at 1/2 inch, which created a piece right here for me to be able to glue onto the top of that base page and create a flap. Next, I'm going to cut 2 of these corner pockets. I say 2 because this will end up creating 4 corner pockets out of 2 squares. I'm going to use a 6 by 6. So I'm going to cut 2 6 by 6s. I'm going to score that on all 4 sides at 1/2 inch. And then after I score it, I'm going to cut on the diagonal right through the X marks the spot from corner to corner. Once I do that, I can trim all of the corners off, and it creates these pockets right here. Now the 1/2 inch scores are the portions that I use to wrap around that flap page, and I glued it down here and here so that this is an open pocket here, but the sides are wrapped around the flap page and glued down. Last thing I'm going to do is the flap pocket. So on the back side of this flap page is this pocket. And you're going to cut 4 pieces that measure 6 3/8 by 3 3/4. On the 6 3/8 inch side, you're going to score it at 1/2 inch and 5 7/8. It's going to look like this. You'll trim off those corners and you'll glue down the 3 sides to create an open pocket. Then you have all 4 pieces assembled, all the pages. Now during the video I mentioned that on this back page I had created a belly band. For the belly band, you're going to cut 1 piece that measures 4 1/2 inches wide by 9 1/4 inches tall. On the 9 1/4 inch side, you're going to score at 1/2 inch and 8 3/4. That way you can fold along those score lines and glue those down to the base page. And by doing so, you create this belly band. On the back cover, I did this tri-fold. I only did 1 of them, so you're going to cut 1 piece that is 12 inches by 6 1/2 inches tall. On the 12-inch side, you're going to score at 4 inches and 8 inches. So it creates these 2 score marks. Once you fold those, you end up with 3 spots for pictures when you open it up. And then you also, at the same time, have created a spot here for a photo and a spot here for a photo. So out of that, you gain 5 places for a tall vertical photo or journaling. Now don't forget, before you glue this trifold down, to make sure to put down your decorative paper, then your seam binding, then your trifold, so that you have a mechanism for holding it closed. Okay, now for the hinge piece, I'm going to go through this together. You're going to cut 1 piece for the hinge. We have 4 pages. For each page we need a 1 inch, and in between each of the pages we need 1/2 inch. So since we have 3 spaces that are in between pages, 3 times a 1/2 inch is 1.5 inches, plus the inch for each page. So that's going to be 4 inches plus 1.5 inches. So we need a hinge that measures 5.5 by the height of our page. And the height of our page here was 8.25. We want it to be a little bit less than the page itself so that it can slide inside of the tube. So I'm going to take 1/8 inch off. So we're going to make our hinges, the height of that, 8 1/8. Okay? Now, on the 5.5 inch side, we're going to score at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, 3.5 inches, 4, 4 1/2, and 5. So it's at every 1/2 inch. This is the way that you end up with a mountain for page 1 to go on top of. You end up with a gusset, then another mountain. This is page 2, a gusset, page 3, a gusset, and page 4. This is where you glue so you have this side and this side glued together. You glue underneath the mountain. After you've put that together, then you'd be left with 3 gussets and 4 hinges. Glue the whole thing down to your spine after you put your decorative paper if you wish, and then you can slip your tube pages onto each one of those hinges. Until next time, everyone, happy crafting. Bye.